You felt this before, instantly. You take a bite, and before you even swallow, your body reacts. Not from heat in the room, not from effort, from something you put in your mouth. Within seconds, your lips start to feel it. Then your throat. Then something spreads through your chest. And what's happening here is not random. You can't stop it. You feel it. Your eyes water. Your forehead prickles. And somewhere deep in the body, switches on. Most people's instinct is to reach for water. But here's what most people never stop to ask. Why does your body react to this before it even becomes food? Before digestion, before absorption, before it even enters your system? Something in this is reaching your body instantly, and your body is treating it like something real, something urgent, something it needs to respond to right away. There is a spice that has been in kitchens and markets all over the world for centuries. You have probably tasted it. You may have avoided it. You might have it in your cupboard right now and never thought twice about it. But the people who came before us, the healers, the warriors, the monks, the sailors, they did not treat this casually. They used it before battle. They carried it on ships, crossing freezing oceans. They packed it into wounds on the battlefield. They brewed it into preparations for the sick and the cold and the feverish. And here is the thing that does not make sense on the surface. Why would something that burns the mouth, something that makes the eyes water and the body sweat, be used as medicine? Unless the body's reaction to it is not a problem, unless the reaction is the point. This spice is bright red, dried and ground into a fine powder. It has been sitting in spice racks across the world for so long that most people stopped thinking about it. It is cayenne pepper. And what most people don't know, what most people have never been told, is that this may be one of the most studied natural compounds on Earth when it comes to what it does to the human body. Not a new supplement, not a trend, not something discovered in a lab last year, something that has been used consistently across nearly every culture on Earth for close to 10,000 years. And your body responds to it within seconds because it was designed to. If this is already changing how you see something that's been in your spice rack your entire life, subscribe. Because what this plant does inside the body goes much deeper than the heat. Here is how old this goes. Archaeological evidence places cayenne pepper in human use in Central and South America nearly 9,000 years ago. That is not a recent discovery. That is older than the pyramids. Older than most written language. The Aztec and Mayan civilizations did not use it only as food. They used it as medicine. Applied directly to infected wounds. Used for toothaches and fevers. Given to warriors before battle, not for flavor, but for what it did to the body's energy and pain threshold. In Aztec cosmology, the pepper was not ordinary. It was considered a gift from the gods. Used in ritual offerings. Treated as something sacred. When Columbus arrived in the Americas in 1492, he was searching for black pepper, the spice that had made traders rich for centuries. What he found instead was something different, something stronger. He brought it back to Europe in 1493, and within decades, it had spread to Africa, India, China, and the Middle East. Every culture it reached, absorbed it into their medicine. In traditional Chinese medicine, it became a warming herb for the stomach, the lungs, and the meridians, the pathways through which, in that system, energy moves through the body. When those pathways were cold or stagnant, Cayenne was used to restore warmth and movement. In Ayurveda, one of the oldest living medical systems on Earth, Cayenne was classified as tridoshic. That is a significant designation. It means practitioners believed it could bring all three fundamental energies of the body into balance. Not just heat one thing, balance the whole system. Medieval European monks, who kept records of every plant and preparation they used, documented hot pepper preparations for circulation, for cold complaints, and for what they described as sluggish blood. Sailors crossing the Atlantic in the 1700s kept cayenne in their provisions, not for taste, but because it kept them warm from the inside when the cold of the open ocean reached into their bones. The pattern is always the same. Different continents, different traditions, different eras. The same plant, the same use. They were all noticing something real. What were they actually paying attention to? The most consistent observation across every tradition is circulation, movement. Heat spreading through the body from the inside out. In traditional Chinese medicine, cold means stagnant. It means things are not moving the way they should. Blood, energy, digestion, breath. And cayenne, in that system, was one of the fastest ways to restore movement. You may have felt this without understanding it. Think about the last time you ate something significantly spicy. After the initial heat in the mouth, there is often a warmth that spreads further, down into the chest, into the stomach, sometimes all the way to the fingertips, a flush across the skin, a sense that something has been switched on. That is not your imagination. That is blood moving to the surface. That is your cardiovascular system responding. The Aztec warriors who used cayenne before battle were not wrong about what it did. It raised alertness, it increased heart rate, it created a physical shift in the body's state, from resting to activated within minutes. In early American folk medicine, cayenne tea was a standard remedy for fevers and colds. The reasoning was simple and direct. If the body is cold and sluggish, you warm it. You open the pathways, you let it move. One of the most dramatic traditional uses, and one that modern herbalists still document, is cayenne applied directly to wounds to stop bleeding. The ancient Mayans knew this. Battlefield healers knew this. It sounds counterintuitive, because something that burns should surely make things worse. But the traditional observation was consistent. It slowed bleeding, it kept the wound from festering, and the patient experienced less pain than expected. Modern science would eventually explain why. The active compound in cayenne pepper is called capsaicin. It is what creates the heat. And it is what researchers have been studying intensively for the past several decades. Here is the first thing to understand. When capsaicin touches the receptors in your mouth and throat, it activates something called TRPV1, a pain receptor that normally responds to physical heat. Your body cannot tell the difference between capsaicin and actual fire. It treats them identically. That is why you sweat. That is why your heart rate rises. That is why blood moves to the surface of the skin. Your body believes it is managing heat, and it responds the way it always has, with everything it has, immediately. This is not a side effect. This is the mechanism. And it turns out that triggering this response intentionally in controlled small amounts has measurable effects on the body. Research has shown that capsaicin has thermogenic properties. It raises the body's metabolic rate for a period after consumption. The body is spending energy to manage the perceived heat, and that energy expenditure is real and measurable. Studies have also found that capsaicin can reduce appetite. Participants who consumed capsaicin before meals consistently ate less in the meals that followed without being told to. The body adjusted on its own. But perhaps the most interesting finding is what capsaicin does to pain. Capsaicin causes the release of endorphins, the same chemicals the body releases during exercise and, in smaller amounts, when we laugh. It also depletes a compound called substance P, the chemical the nervous system uses to transmit pain signals. Apply capsaicin to a painful area repeatedly, and over time, the nerve endings in that area run out of substance P. They cannot transmit pain as effectively. The area becomes desensitized. This is not a theory. The FDA has approved capsaicin as a topical pain treatment. It is used in prescription patches for nerve pain, post-surgical pain, and arthritis. The Aztec healers who applied ground pepper to wounds were not working with folklore. They were observing a real pharmacological response without the words for it. And on the question of bleeding, capsaicin has been shown to cause vasoconstriction, narrowing of blood vessels when applied to tissue, which is exactly what you would want in a wound. Early research is also exploring capsaicin's relationship with certain cancer cells. Multiple studies have found that capsaicin can induce apoptosis, programmed cell death, in certain cancer cell lines in laboratory conditions. Nothing conclusive yet for human treatment. But the consistency of the finding across multiple institutions is something researchers are paying close attention to. So we decided to pay attention the way the ancient world paid attention. Not with measurements, not with a laboratory, just with the body. 7 days. The same simple ingredient, used deliberately in small amounts every morning. And here is what we noticed. Day 1. The first morning, the heat is the only thing. It is hard to notice anything else when your mouth and chest are responding this directly. But underneath the heat, if you stay with it, there is something else. A kind of aliveness. A sharpness that was not there before. Most people notice they feel more awake after this than after their coffee. Day 2. The heat is still there, but the body is starting to recognize it. The shock is smaller. What you start to notice instead is digestion. Meals seem to process differently. There is less of the slow, heavy feeling that can sit for an hour after eating. Something is moving faster. Day 3. This is often the first day that people notice something in their energy. Not dramatic, but steadier. The afternoon dip, the hour after lunch, where focus drops and the body wants to slow down, is less pronounced for some. Not gone. Just quieter. Day 4. Some people notice changes in appetite, not suppression, more like recalibration. The urgent need to snack between meals lessens slightly. The body seems more satisfied with less for longer. This is consistent with what the research on capsaicin and appetite shows, but experiencing it is different from reading about it. Day 5. Circulation. This is the day it becomes more noticeable. Hands and feet that normally run cold start to feel warmer. The flush that comes with cayenne in the morning feels like it lasts longer into the day, a low-level warmth that stays with the body for hours. What felt aggressive on day 1 starts to feel almost welcome. The body seems to begin anticipating it. Day 6. Some people report that their relationship to the heat changes entirely by this point. This is consistent with what traditional practitioners described, that the body learns to receive this plant. Day 7. The clearest shift most people report is not one single thing. It is a general sense of activation. The body feels more switched on than it did 7 days ago. Digestion is different. Energy is different. The cold parts of the body are warmer, and the morning feels less like pulling yourself out of sleep and more like stepping into something the body is already ready for. The most important rule with cayenne is the same one every ancient tradition taught. Start small. This is not a plant to flood the body with. It is a plant to introduce carefully and let the body adjust. For a morning practice, a small pinch, and we mean small, less than a quarter teaspoon, stirred into warm water with a squeeze of lemon and a small amount of raw honey. This is one of the oldest morning preparations in the world. It was used in South American traditions, in Ayurvedic morning routines, and in American folk medicine. The lemon and honey balance the intensity of the heat and make it easier to take on an empty stomach. For food, add a small amount to eggs, soups, stews, or anything with healthy fat. Fat helps the capsaicin absorb more evenly and reduces the sharpness of the initial reaction. For combination use, cayenne and ginger together have been used in traditional medicine for centuries. Both are warming, both support circulation, and together they create a compounding effect. A small pinch of each in warm water is a traditional preparation that appears independently in multiple cultures. What to avoid? Taking cayenne on a completely empty stomach in large amounts, especially in the beginning. The body needs time to adjust. Start with a pinch. Stay there for several days before increasing. Freshly ground dried cayenne or good quality powder from a trusted source will always be stronger than old powder that has been sitting in a jar for a year. The heat fades as the capsaicin degrades. Fresh is always better. Cayenne in small, regular food amounts is safe for most people. People with active stomach ulcers, gastritis, or irritable bowel syndrome should approach this carefully. Capsaicin stimulates the stomach lining, which can be beneficial for healthy digestion, but irritating for an already inflamed one. If you are on blood-thinning medication, speak to your doctor before making cayenne a regular practice. Capsaicin can affect how certain medications are metabolized and may have mild blood-thinning properties of its own. Some people experience what is often called a healing crisis in the first 2 or 3 days. Increased sweating, a more active digestive system, or an initial increase in mucus production. This is the body responding, not a warning sign. It usually settles by day 3. If you feel a burning sensation that does not subside or notice any unusual reaction, reduce the amount or stop and see how the body responds. The ancient rule applies here too. Pay attention. Your body will tell you what it needs and what it does not. Here is what stays with me about cayenne pepper. It has been in kitchens across the world for centuries. It sits in spice racks, barely touched, next to things people buy because they read that they should. And yet it was used by the oldest civilizations on Earth as something worthy of ritual, something warriors carried, something healers trusted, something sailors took to sea. They were not treating it as flavor. They were treating it as force. Your body responds to it in seconds, not because it is being overwhelmed, but because it recognizes something that has been part of human experience for 9,000 years. We stopped paying attention. The plant did not stop working. Try this for the next 7 days, the way you've seen here. Start small, stay with it, and then come back and tell me what you noticed. Was it the warmth? The energy? Something in the digestion? Or something we didn't even mention? Something your body showed you that nobody else has talked about yet? That is the part that matters most.